Thank you. Okay, we haven't been here for 2 weeks. Significant things happened the last couple of weeks, and so we're here again. First, we received a suggestion about our trip to Florida from our daughter-in-law in India to go visit her parents down and spend some time with them down in Florida. Our doctor also said that Juanita perhaps would benefit from relief of pain from her fibromyalgia, but we were concerned that it wouldn't be long enough. So we did spend about 10 days down there. And my daughter said, "Dad, you can't," because I resisted going at first. "Dad, you can't be working all the time." You know, when you get older, your children start telling you what's best. No, too. Well, we landed in Grand Rapids. We had to sit a little bit before we pulled up the gate. We left sunny, 70-some degrees, in snow, and the pilot shut off his engines and said over the speaker, "Welcome to winter." So here we are again. And it was winter, but it was okay. We're home. You know, once I returned from Florida, and it was my mom's first cousin. He appeared at our home on some business. We'd been working on a project before I left. And he said, first thing he said with a serious expression as he stepped in, "You ought to have your head examined." And I wondered, what in the world for? What did I do about in our business item that I made a mistake in? He said, "For coming back from Florida." So I guess he was right too. But Michigan is okay. At least I saw the other day, no, it was on Facebook. At least we don't have hurricanes. At least we don't have hurricanes. Every shovel he shoveled, at least we don't have hurricanes. So we're here. I've missed the last 2 Sundays, but and I'm not aware of the messages that were what was always presented. I'm supposed to today finish up the theme on loving and discipling people, the portion of that. Next Sunday, I think we start another one on reaching out. I'm not sure what it's called, but anyway. What the Lord has laid on my heart to present actually fits both loving and of people. And this I felt, and perhaps the last 2 weeks it was aimed for all people in the world or in our community, but I'm aiming it for us here, for each other. So it's especially for youth, children, and parents. And the title, and I texted Bianca, and I got a little too late. She said, "You just finished the bulletin." She wrote me back. So I didn't get in the bulletin. Loving, Discipling Our Own is the title. Acts 14, 21, and 22. I want to read just 2 verses. You can listen to these because they're short. 14, 21, and 22. I think I've got the wrong reference because it's not in there. No, I'm in the wrong chapter. Okay, here we go. And when they, that's Paul and Barnabas, they're on their first missionary journey, and when the gospel to the city, that's the last city they visited, and made many disciples, and when they had preached the gospel to that city and had made many disciples, they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, strengthening the souls of the disciples, exhorting them to continue in the faith, and saying, "We must through many tribulations enter the kingdom of God." So the point here is that they went back to encourage the people that they had led to conversion and acceptance of Jesus and his salvation. We all need encouragement, don't we? And we need to encourage each other, build up our faith. We all fail so terribly sometimes. And I'm not just preaching this to you. This is for me too. I sometimes fail at doing this. But anyway, we also need to remember that we're in a war. And the war began in heaven. And if you turn to Revelation 12, I'm going to read 4 verses. Revelation 12. I'm going to start with verse 7. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and the angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not, nor was a place found for longer. Skip down to verse 12. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows he has only a short time. Now, verse 17, the last verse. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. This woman represents Israel, as I understand. He went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of. You know, if you're a Christian this morning and you've done this, you are in that group. He's after you and he's after me. I want to relate that to and what the devil is up to right now in this world. And he's been giving our church plenty of challenges. There was the last major ground battle in Europe during World War II was the Battle of the Bulge, also referred to as the Ardennes counteroffensive, in which Hitler threw all of his remaining military forces against the Allied armies during their advance in Belgium. And this took place in the really extreme cold. That was really cold that winter, both there and here. In the winter of 1945, the number of American soldiers killed in that war, in that battle, this surprised me, 19,276. That's not counting the British and other Allied armies. But he threw everything he had against them. He had left. There were 2 fronts. There was an eastern front. He gave up on that. He put everything against the western front. That's what Satan is doing today, throwing everything he has against the followers of Jesus Christ. Christians and the church are being maligned, mocked, and having laws passed to limit our influence, throwing everything he has left to sow confusion in men's minds. And isn't our world and our society confused? It is really messed up. But he's behind that. Throwing everything he has left to sow confusion in men's minds, throwing off all morals, claiming no difference between right and wrong, no difference between male and female, promotion of gender neutrality, even the murder of babies up to the time of delivery. That's been in the news lately, depending on which news source you listen to. Others are ignoring that. And sometimes even after the birth, and the baby's alive, but either the mother or the parents have changed their mind, they don't want it, or there's an abnormality, and so they let it die. We know babies need assistance. We had a baby born in Haiti that wanted to delivered. It was premature. I don't know how premature. I think it was 7 months old at me, or 5. How old was that baby in Haiti that we delivered? I don't know, but it was premature. It fit. I held it in my hand. It was from here to here. That's all. We didn't have an incubator. We ran the Delco more, that is the generator, more for heat, because they used light bulbs to throw heat on this baby. We needed so she could heat towels and so forth, water, hot water, and wrap the baby. She had a good mother. Her husband was somewhere else working and sending some money home. It lived. The baby lived. And before we left Haiti, we went up the mountain road, way up, to visit this little girl. She was 5 years old. She was about this tall. A beautiful little Haitian girl. That is, their argument that this is not life is absolutely not true. You know that. I just am reiterating that. God says to us through His Word, the Bible, numerous times that we are to encourage and disciple each other, and we need to do this during this war that we're in. Very important. So I aim this message to children, parents, but especially to the youth of our congregation. For parents, if you read chapter Deuteronomy 6, which I'm not doing, it says, though, keep God in view of your children all the time. When you walk on the road, when you get up in the morning, all the time have pictures or something to remind your children that there's a God and He's interested in them and to save them. That God is, that you have, teach them that you have a view of God within your home and family life, wherever you go, whatever you do. That's important. And parenting is a hard job. It isn't always easy, and we lose our cool, and things go awry sometimes. I want to read or teach them a biblical worldview. A few years ago, Jim and I attended, and so did, I think Gretchen attended, and maybe a couple others from our church. Perspectives class in Iona at the SMAT office there. It was really good, and there were quite a few people there. And they talked about worldview. I want to read about from this magazine that I found. Juanita and I are cleaning out our basement, or did before we went to Florida, and we found this magazine. It's quite old. I called the publisher and asked if it was still in print because I'd like to order it. It's called Moms, and it's full of really good articles. But I got this worldview out of this magazine. Building a biblical worldview. And I'll read what a biblical worldview is. And this is what it says. If life came with a map, it would be so much easier. Thankfully, we have the option for a superior navigational system. It is called a biblical worldview. And you can build one for yourself and your children. In simple terms, a worldview is a set of beliefs about important life issues. It says has a worldview, but many of them today are not even including God in the equation. It serves as a grid or filter through which information is processed and upon which we base our behavior. And doesn't that really get close to what the Bible leads us to and guides us in? I came back and the cough that I had I met it in Grand Rapids, I guess. It just appeared yesterday again. So anyway, for children, they are told to obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. And it says in the Bible that Enoch was way back in the early Old Testament. He had this testimony that he pleased God. So children are to obey their parents in all things, because this is well-pleasing to the Lord. and they are to respect their parents. For youth, what are your goals? I want to read something here I ran onto recently about, it's not too long, but I'll read it. It's about what are your goals? One day, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes lost his train ticket. As he searched for obviously irritated, the conductor said, "It's okay, Mr. Holmes. We know you. Just mail it in. We trust you." Holmes said, "I'm not concerned about finding my ticket. I just want to know where I'm going." Knowing goals let you're going in life. And the best time to set those goals is when you're young. And we got a fair number of youth back here. A lot of your parents are young enough to have some goals too. I'd say that 50% of the people around you have no idea where they're going. Half of the people have no idea where they're going. Another 40% will go in any direction they're led. The remaining 10% know where they'd like to go, but fewer than half of them are prepared to pay the price to get there. On December, this is one of the things I found in our basement when I was, our daughter said, "Don't clean your basement. When you are finished, we'll just bring a dumpster and throw everything in there." Well, I'm going through some of these boxes that we've saved, and I like to keep notes when a person is preaching, and so I've saved some of these bulletins. I happened to run into this one that was from Sunday, December 3rd, 1984, by Ed Schumer, pastor here, and he reported a sermon. 90% of teenagers answered a survey that they didn't believe God had a plan for their lives. 90%. I don't think that's true of our children or of our youth here. And I'm glad. I see some really positive things about our youth here, and I'm so happy about that. We all are. Also said in that sermon, anytime a person is called into God's service, it takes time, commitment, and dedication. Anything God calls us to do, we must give it all we have. The question, am I willing to make that investment and obey in obedience? Juanita and I received a note from Gretchen recently, part of which I'd like to read. And I see there's one back here. Jim told me there was one back here, and I read it this morning. It's a little different than this, but it's similar. Faye and Juanita, thank you for the birthday card and article. I'm not sure which article you sent to her, Juanita. Along with all the prayers. This next year, now this is important, this paragraph. It's important for all the youth here. This next year, I have a ton of decisions to make, and it's hard to think about those right now. But I'm trying to focus on taking one day at a time and making the most of my opportunity that I have. Right now, I am looking forward to summer camp. I just realized. Here's some praises she wrote about. God, she's thankful that God has given me a love for the job I have down here. I love my kids, and I love teaching them Bible stories. And she has some prayer requests here. A big one, she says, is what to do after I'm done with my internship here. I'm not sure when that ends, but it's summer. That's number one request. Number two, that I'll grow in my personal relationship with God. Both of those are very youth. She has another one that's pretty personal. I'm not going to share that, but you know, all youth have these concerns as they're growing into adult life. What am I going to do with my life? Let's pray for Gretchen and all our youth concerning these decisions they need to make. You know, Benjamin, or David, you get David first. Juanita said when he was home on Christmas break, And just before he left, Aaron was here with him, remember, the Hungarian boy. And she said, I'm praying for you, David. He said, yeah, really the main thing I'd like you to pray for is what I should do after this year of college, after this first year. There he goes again. And Benjamin said, when he was in one of his emails, and I couldn't find it, I thought I saved them all, but I apparently didn't save that one. And he said that I'm working on my relationship with God. Seems like my work here I'm not seeing any results, but I'm working on my relationship with God. And that's what she said that. Gretchen said that. We need to be concerned about our relationship with God, don't we? And I think Amelia and Faith have had these same thoughts. In one of the earlier, where I said that, one step at a time. That's what Gretchen referred to, taking one step at a time. God doesn't reveal everything to you. Remember when Saul was on the Damascus Road and he was struck down, and he met the Lord there. And he asked the question, Lord, what will you have me to do? And the voice, which I'm sure was Jesus, said, go into the city and it will be told to you. I'm the kind that always wanted everything answered up front. That's not the way life is. That's not the way God leads. He leads one step at a time. And I felt a lot in that area. I'm really sorry. I'm saying that so to encourage the youth, trust the Lord to give you the next step. Now, that's not always easy. We'll make mistakes. Remember Abraham? He made a big mistake. He had a promise of a son that Sarah was going to have. And they waited, I think, 25 years. Still no son. Sarah was 90. He was 100 and some, 100 maybe. And so he took things in his own hands by the first suggestion of his wife. And he made a mistake. People, we do make mistakes along the way in interpreting and discerning God's will, don't we? We do, every one of us. I have. My own experience as a youth, we had a draft back when I was young. And for 2 years, someone else made my decisions for me. After that, I was on my own. That is, between God and me. I needed to check with God about my future. Well, so there's some fear involved in some of these steps, and God said or says in the Bible, the question is, does God respond to our prayers for His will? And the Bible gives an example. He made known His ways to Moses, and saying, my presence will go with you. Yeah, Moses found out as he went along, and he had a big job. Some pitfalls that happen along. Attitude is one of them. Our attitudes can deteriorate. It's just like the rockets they used to send to the moon. They get off course a little bit, and they had to use the computers that controlled them down here to get them back on track, to adjust for the direction that they were going. So they hit the target. Well, we need to do that with our attitude as we travel to life. The storms of life can knock one out of alignment, our attitude. It certainly can. It needs to be checked regularly and adjusted as necessary. One of the priorities that helps check our attitude is read. As I've listened to some of the worship in class and some of Don's leading, sharing, and singing, we're on this subject that I'm speaking about today. Trusting the Lord. And the song that was played, Take Time to Be Holy. We've got to take some of our time that's just wasted and put it into our maturing process, our spiritual growth. You know, when Joshua was ready to go into conquest Canaan, he was told in Joshua 1:8, study this book continually, meditate on it day and night. Be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed. We need to trust the Lord and obey. It's so very important to do that. Quoting again that I had taken notes on, the ocean may have 50-foot waves, and they're going to have them on Lake Michigan today. I don't know how big they're going to be, not that, but it may have 50-foot waves on the surface, but 50 feet down, it's calm. And that's what we need to have so much trust in the Lord that inside of us, we're calm, even though the storm is raging around us. I need help in that area. Not only that, don't just study it. Not only study it, but marinate. I had to look up marinating. It's when you soak meat in a flavored sauce of herbs, that it gets a better flavor. And we need to meditate, marinate, and a whole bunch of things that we need to do with the Word of God. Take time to be holy, remember? Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I'm God. Sometimes we just, when we're having our devotions, our prayer, we just stop. And that's not bad. God, we have to stop sometimes for God to speak to us so we can listen. Now, relationships with people, too. This is another one. That first one was with God. Now, with people, relationship building takes a lot of time. And that's what Benjamin was referring to in his work over in Albania. And that doesn't see a lot of results in his work. So he was a little bit concerned. But that's different than our job down in Haiti was medical work, and we could see a lot of results because the medicine that Juanita prescribed and results from the tests that indicated which medication. We could see a result. They were cured. But relationship building is different than that. It's more difficult to assess. But if you want a relationship with someone you really want to be friends with, you have to spend quality time with that person. You can't have a close relationship with everyone. We can't. We don't have to. We should have one or two or three or a few that we can really. Last night, Dennis came. Our daughter was there yesterday, and her daughter spent the day with us. And they were about to leave, and then Dennis showed up, Dennis Bjork. And he took over an hour to talk about some of the things that he's really dealing with. You know, I thought, maybe I don't have time. It was important. He needs someone to bounce off his concerns. He really needs that, and we need to give time to our friends, too. That builds friendship. We can be friendly with and have everybody as our close friend. Let's pray for God's direction for our youth and for their discernment of it. Discernment is sometimes quite difficult, but let's pray that they'll have clear discernment about where God wants to take them. Let's continue to pray. We need to pray about what God wants, what His will is for their life, His specific will, and for a spouse, a life partner. Let's continue to pray for families with young children. I'm really concerned about the young children today. And you parents have a really important job to raise these, even in teenage years, yes, to raise them to know the Lord. Build that biblical foundation that you teach. Build it in their thoughts, their lives. First by the parents, and then by the church. I'm glad for what our church did for me when I was growing up here. I just appreciate it, and I thank God for it. You know, I was reading in devotions this week, and we're reading through the Romans right now. It's a heavy book. I ran onto this. Paul was so concerned about his people. Now, this is love. This is really love. He said this, Romans 9, 1-3. I'm not going to read it all, but just the one verse. I have great sorrow and continual grief in my heart, for I could wish for myself a curse from Christ for my brethren, my countrymen according to the flesh. Well, you know, that's what we need with each other, don't we, this morning? And every time, and every day. Right now, we really need that. With all the things that have happened in our church in the last 2 years, we really need them. I'd like to read from Philippians 4:8. I think I have it here. This is what it says. You know, you try to watch the news, and they advertise some trash that's going to come up later in the evening. You can hardly listen to and watch the advertisement. I mean, the review of what's going to be shown. And the world, the press, is so concerned about where we're going that we're going the wrong direction. But they're behind pushing this kind of trash. Well, this is what Paul says. Whatsoever things are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, of good report, if there is any virtue of these, anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. What we become is what is in our minds. And we're to control our minds. We're given the mind. And Paul said in one place that we have the mind of Christ. So let's discipline our minds to think on the right things and to feed our youth and our children the right things that makes growth possible. Thank you. That's what I have. We'll stop.